This is Jackie with Idea Citizen. Today I'm speaking with Rainier Mallol. We're talking about AI and customer experience. I actually thought of having this conversation with you. I was like, let's start with the least interesting thing about you. And because I feel like there's so many interesting things, but I'm like, let's start with some laughs. I'm a huge Conan O'Brien fan, and I was scrolling on your Instagram and I saw that you met him. And I have to ask, is he as cool as he seems in person?
Honestly, I was surprised, and yes, he is. So it is kind of a funny story how I got that picture. So I was at this event. It was like targeted to recent graduates. I was with the Clinton Foundation. Of course, he spoke there and whatnot, but I had just met two friends in the event. They were really fans of him, and like I'm not. I mean, I love him of course, and I'm a fan, but they were like huge fans. Like they were there at the event not for the Clinton initiative, everything else. They were there for Conan. So they were like, "Oh my God, I would love to meet him and whatnot." And I noticed that we were like very close to where the entrance or where the artist or where the talent goes. And I was like, "Hey, let's just go inside and let's just make a bed and see if we can actually meet him and whatnot."
Yeah.
So suddenly there was no security person there, and we just passed through, and suddenly there was Conan right there. So they were like, "Oh my God, he's there! What do we do now?" And guys, let's just go out and ask him for a picture, and then that's how we got the picture. So we were three, and each of us got one. And he was like, "I remember that picture." I'm like shaking his hand. And he was like, "I'm feeling like you're selling my car, like I'm selling you my car or something." So
I read that. I read that in the caption. I think it's so cool because you didn't care as much, like you weren't nearly as big of a super fan as some of your friends. So you're like, what's the big deal? No big deal. I'm like, he's a person too. But legitimately,
yes.
that is, in my opinion, the least interesting thing about you. I This is my way of kicking off if you could give a self introduction to yourself because you're quite accomplished. You've done so much.
Yes, I have to say, actually, this is not the best thing for a podcast, but I'm kind of an introvert, so I usually don't about myself that much, but I will try it out. I'm Rainier. I'm Rainier. I like to innovate or to create technology, and that's something that you only find out when you do it. But I have a very big sense of fulfillment that I feel when I actually accomplish to build something that helps people or to helps companies or whatnot. So I think by heart, I'm an innovator. I have worked with AI for almost the past 10 years, even when AI was not, such a big thing as it is now. And that has allowed me to, help governments in different countries, help companies from different sectors, and just to have this sense of how the world works through the lens of implementing technology for different industries and different social impact projects. Also, due to that, I have been able to, be recognized in different magazines like Forbes, MIT. Also, I went to Harvard for a while for a master's. That was a dream of mine when I was since I was little. And yeah, I honestly I would just exchange all of those recognitions and all of those Harvard and whatnot just to have more time to innovate and to provide more value. I think tech, of course, could be used for many bad reasons or not the best ones, but at its core, it's just a way for us to do better or for us to, be provide more value or provide more impact to the world. So I like to think of myself as someone that enables, people to do that through the tech that we develop in our company.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I've met somebody yet that actually has a background with AI from 10 years ago.
I know.
It's interesting because I mean, technology evolves, technology with the adoption and implementation. I mean, now we're at a point, I don't know what I would even call right now where we are with AI, but it's like, we're not at the peak. I don't feel like in any capacity, but we're definitely at the kind of like a little more mass adoption, mass curiosity, mass awareness. Um, I'm curious from your vantage point, like where did you first start seeing like you're like, oh, AI is really it's like something's gonna happen here. Like what was happening 10 years ago in artificial intelligence?
That's a very good question. Let me just introduce that, being in the industry for so long, I can actually see how perspectives have changed. So 10 years ago, I remember like meeting these influential people, government leaders, C-level executives and whatnot. The reality is that people actually did not know what AI was. Right now, I don't think people know a lot about it, but at least they know about ChatGPT and whatnot. But I do remember like coming out from meetings where I was surprised at the questions that I got in the meetings. So people were asking me like, this has a lot of potential, I promise, but wouldn't this like kill us in the future? Wouldn't this like take out all of our jobs and whatnot? So, they were more closely focusing on the Hollywood style of AI, like Terminator and whatnot. But 10 years ago, we were using AI just not in a way that was purposefully, or at least on purpose. Like 10 years ago, we had Facebook and Instagram, and we had these recommendation systems that would push content to us. And AI actually has been used since the 70s with the automation, with the auto industry. The body freeze AI, at least in the industrial setting, was to detect faults in a recently produced car just because it was so much time consuming. Answering your question, 10 years ago, no one was talking about this. Only a few people in California were talking about it and talking it as a way of this could have a lot of potential in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say, like, even I was surprised at the big shift it took in the past 2 years. I think most of the reason is due to ChatGPT and OpenAI.
Right.
But even I was surprised when that was released. Like, I did not expect such an innovation to be so accessible or so democratized so soon. I was expecting it for like in the next 10 years. And it just shows you, like there's now a lot of people working in it, and on different aspects of AI, not only conversational AI, but also machine learning, image recognition, and whatnot. So I think it's a field that has been going around for quite a few years, but it is only now that we're actually seeing how it can actually impact our daily lives in a way that is full of purpose, not in a way that it's just I use it because the tech that I use has it. Now people are thinking about using AI on their day to day. They now are thinking of projects using AI. Now they see it as a complementary of software development. So it's great. It's in the dictionary of people now. It's something that they can look forward to think about. It's something that
Yeah.
they go to the classes about. So yeah.
Well, it's kind of perfect because we're ultimately here to talk about AI and the customer experience. So your point around the intersectionality of people and like what is any of this stuff for ultimately is if it isn't in theory, I would hope to better our lives in some capacity. And so if we can make, I don't know, things easier, things faster, things cheaper, like let's do that. And to your point regarding I think you said something like, oh, is it going to take away our jobs? Like people were saying that, 10 years ago. It's like the reality is that some of the jobs that we have today, we never even anticipated, can never even imagine 10 years ago. Like everything, the only constant is change. And so here we are. AI for me is a part of my day to day life. I think so. My main source, my main use of AI is actually through Copilot. I started off with Chat GPT, but Copilot just quickly, like in terms of like the ease of use, and I think the free version, because I haven't looked into any of the purchased versions, but like the free version, I find that has like updated information. So that's kind of my preferred AI companion on my day to day life. Is actually using that for just all sorts of different questions. And I mean, I use it on a regular basis actually with helping to formulate some of the outlines for the podcast and talking points. Like I even before this call, I did ask, I was like, what are some of the most important things about AI? Because I even realized as I've been learning more and more, there's so much that I don't know. And so, I mean, you've been in it, so I feel like you're going to be a treasure trove of information. So I like to start these conversations off with what is your definition of AI?
That's a good question. I think that for me, it's just AI is just a way to automate tasks
Hmm.
that otherwise could not have been automated. So there's this like big umbrella term called digital transformation, which basically just means okay, you have to have in your organization, operations are digitized, but that they're also like automated. They take you to a point which you have to do almost nothing in your business. We are not there yet. I don't think we're able to be like there at least in these next few decades. But what I would say is that now with the current capabilities that we have with AI today, which is so democratized, we are even closer to having automated workflows or jobs to be done. So you were mentioning, and you're right, that a few of the jobs, are likely to disappear, but a lot of them are likely to change as well. And one thing that I have always, academia and industry is that many of our alums, in different universities, they are prepared. Let's say marketing, for example, they are prepared to make decisions regarding marketing with data and with analysis. But then when they go into the workforce, they just do some data input, and a little bit of the job is just, analyzing the data and making decisions. And most of it is just putting data in an Excel file, following a CRM or some type of table analysis, and then doing a report that's just like the last 10%. So now with AI, that will shift. Now teams will be able to actually not worry about all of that manual work, and they will be actually be able to use the skills that they learned in school in a much more faster way. So now you would not need to wait 5 years and have a VP position to actually make marketing decisions,
Right.
because in the past, only the VP could do it because he would need a team, to gather data from social media, from this campaign, from this channel, from this whatnot, and you would have heaps of people just doing that, manual work. So that is just an example of how, AI is able to automate things different than how we used to do it in the past. AI by score allows us to automate patterns of pattern recognition. So it doesn't have to be binary, it doesn't have to be like a specific rule-based automation. It doesn't have to be if this and that. It could be an impossible number, to count, and a limitless, an infinite number of ifs.
Yep.
And specific outputs. So just in short, to me, AI is a way forward in automation that allows us to automate even when the rules or concepts that we need to automate can vary or can change.
Yeah. In some of my research recently, I learned that there's like kind of different types of AI. There's narrow AI and general AI. And I'm not, for the purpose of customer experience, and I'll read just what I wrote, and this is more for the listeners. I feel like this is like, you already know this. Narrow AI is designed to perform a narrow tasks. Example, facial recognition, internet searches. General AI is a theoretical concept where AI has the ability to perform any intellectual task that a human can do. So I guess my question to you is, for the purpose of customer experience, does it matter what we're talking about? I think there's clearly an application of narrow AI, let's call it chatbots, assistants, and whatnot. But at the question I come, like, if we're again talking about customer experience, like general AI, like any intellectual human task that a human can do, like, are we also talking about that, like really like the full scope of what AI can potentially do just to enhance a customer experience, or is it really just more from like a automation and kind of how do I say this, like messaging funnel standpoint?
So what we're seeing, or what you're asking is, okay, is it something like very specific that it can do, or is it like more broad speaking, like can it do everything? So actually, I have this discussion with other people that don't believe in AI that much, which I think to me it's a bit crazy. Like it's not that you have to believe; it's just that it's there. It's a tool, you can use it. But there's other people that think, oh no, AI is hype, go just like blockchain is a hype and whatnot. But I think that the real value of AI is when you connect it with other systems or when you connect it with other data.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of customer experience, one of the biggest challenges that are now is, okay, how do you know what your customers are saying in an omni-channel way? Like, how do you know what they're saying in Facebook, in your call center, in your emails, in your chats, in the videos, in every place that they can talk about you? How do you know what they're saying? What do you know? Are they speaking badly of you? Are they speaking positively of you? Are they having issues with your product or your service? So the way that AI could work in this scenario is actually, you connect it with all these different systems. And in that regard, yeah, you have a very narrow AI, but that is capable of actually analyzing things, channels in an agnostic way. And when you put all of this together, then you can have another AI, to do a recommendation or to do a report. So I do think that we will see in customer experience and also in a lot of other industries, applications in which AI is used in a very specific manner or in a very narrow manner. But if you see the system as a whole, there will be different points where AI is used and different integrations where you feed information to the AI. And that, I think, is where we will see major changes in industries. And there's this quote that AI will have a very big impact on the world, but the impact will be on boring jobs. And I cannot agree more. Like there, in insurance companies, in banks, in retail offices, like there are a lot of tasks that are so boring to do. That is your manual data entry. That is just copy and pasting from one side to another system. All of this and beyond will be automated with AI. And I think that is the value that we will see, and that is how productivity will certainly improve. Like even programming, like there are jobs that require you, just to write what we call tests, which is a way to verify that the code that you wrote it's good and that it will not affect other aspects of your system or your code. And that is a lot of work. You have test engineers. And
Yeah.
now, like just last week, I saw a paper talking about an AI that is able to reduce the amount of tests that you have to write because it analyzes all your code and then provides its own tests and runs its own tests and whatnot. So that part of the job, honestly, is the one that I like the least. But if an AI can do it for me, then of course I want to do what I want because I want to know, I want to have code coverage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, so A, it's boring, but B, it's long. And I think it's also, I mean, for any sort of QA tester, I mean, it's to go into something on a day-to-day basis with the expectation of perfection. I mean, there's going to be human error involved. Like that just is the nature of the job. So I think people that do that role ultimately need to stay fresh. So yeah, if there is something to back you up or to potentially do that, where then that person that is in that type of role can provide I don't know, recommendations in terms of improvements or build out additional functionality, whatever that means, kind of like more thinking strategically. I hear your point. Back to your point around some of the automations as well, in terms of what I took from what you were saying was kind of like there's a AI component where let's call it like social listening. So let's call it reviews, let's call it just online chatter like through Reddit, whatnot. It feels like we currently have like I sign up for Google Alerts. I think that's a good functionality, but it's kind of narrow and this also comes down to like the prompts that you put into it. It's kind of narrow. It's like if you put your name and quotes and or plus sign or like the various different kind of formats, I do think that I think AI, if I'm understanding correctly, will be able to really, if somebody misspells my name and everything, like it will kind of like be able to search and kind of determine if something is in fact for like that same search functionality. And like, I guess then what then happens next? Like it will take those insights, those data points, will it like infer if something is like a positive interaction or a negative interaction? Like what happens after that?
These questions are perfect because they're aligned with what I'm developing now, which is CX Genius. So yes, like even if we go back before AI, there's people today, and I know these people exist because I have interviewed their bosses, that their only job is to copy and paste reviews from, let's say, Google Maps,
What?
comments in social media. Yeah, and paste it in an Excel sheet. And then after they paste it in the Excel sheet, they say, okay, this comment is positive because of these reasons. This other comment, this review is negative because of these reasons. This conversation touched on this topic and it touched on those topics in a negative way. And then they compile all of this data that used to be in a structure. Now it's kind of a structure because you have this sentiment analysis and this theme identification. And with that, they say, okay, now let me graph this and let me see what truly people are talking about. And that job will take you like maybe 1 week, 1 week and 1 week for 1 day of analysis. And after that, what they do is, okay, I'm gonna send out this analysis to my boss,
Mm-hmm.
and my boss will do a report that will present it to their bosses. So what AI can do now is just do the whole thing. It will, number one, not AI, but software will integrate all of the interactions in one single place. And once they're in a single place, an AI is able to identify, okay, this conversation was about parking, was about bathroom, and was about pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And on pricing, the sentiment was negative. On bathroom, the sentiment was positive, and on parking and on value, the sentiment was negative. So it will turn this is unstructured data. It doesn't matter if it's a call, if it's text, if it's anything. It will just make it in a way that is on a table format. So it's a structure.
Right, right.
Once it's there, you can have like a statistics analysis. You can have your conventional analysis to determine priority or to determine which areas need to have a certain focus, certain prioritization. And after that, then you have AI to actually analyze that data. Let's say all of the comments that talked about parking and say, okay, these comments touch on parking on reason A, B, and C. And I recommend you, based on your historical, experience with these clients or with this topic in itself, to do X, Y, and Z. And then all of this happens in seconds instead of weeks. And you also offload the work of these people that have to copy and paste all of these reviews and chats and whatnot into an Excel file and then do taxonomy analysis and whatnot. And then you also offload the work of their boss who has to do the charts and prioritization and has to do the recommendations. And then suddenly you have all of this delivered to your inbox automatically without you having to do pretty much anything, just the first initial configuration. But what does this mean? Well, number one is that you now have more capacity to understand what your customers are saying. Before you only had maybe Google reviews and some sort of social media component, but now nothing stops you to also have emails, to also have calls, to also have public comments, private comments, Reddit channels, YouTube comments, Now you don't have that barrier anymore because the tech is there and the tech is solid. Then you also have the analysis of everything that these people have been saying. So you understand what the customer is saying in a much clearer way. I cannot tell you the amount of data that companies have in calls. And let's say when you call the bank, you complain
Yeah.
and you complain maybe about their app or maybe about some service that you had with them. But banks don't do anything with that data. They just store it somewhere. And yes, some of them do quality analysis, but they don't do it on what the customer is saying. They do it on what the employee said. They verify if the employee said hello, if the employee apologized and whatnot. But
Interesting.
where the customer, when the customer is speaking, the customer is revealing information. And yeah, now you have the capabilities to analyze that as well. And then you have, the report generation and the recommendation system and whatnot. So we're in terms of customer experience, beyond chatbots and beyond, the usual aspects that you have way too popular, like there are many different chatbots out there that use AI. Now there is this possibility to actually have an omni-channel analysis of what your customers are saying and truly understanding them. One of our clients was actually surprised that like this was a clinic, and in one of the reports, it was saying like customers are complaining because the TV in the waiting room doesn't have enough volume, and the content that is being there is like really doesn't matter at all. So like there were like 7 people talking about this in that week. Like what? So there are things that really improve customer experience that you wouldn't expect. But people do talk about these things. The real issue is having the time, the capabilities to analyze all of them. And this is where I comes in. You don't have to have the time. You only need to have this tech.
Well, so let me ask you this, and I don't know if my question is going to touch more on like personalization or natural language processing, but so my question is, and I've worked with some tools that, they do social listening and you get like a sentiment if something's positive and negative or whatever, where it's automatically, classified normally. But I don't know, and I guess it's a larger question, like how does AI determine, like if you're looking at like a mass data pool set, let's call it like the English language. And the English language, like, you're touching on multitude of different countries. You're touching on basically like Australia, the United States, Canada, plenty of different South Africa. And they have different kind of like styles in terms of like how they speak English and English. And I don't mean that in terms of an accent. I mean that in terms of the words used. So for example, even in the United States, you can say something, and I'm going to curse. So if somebody has kids around, but so you can say something is the shit, and that means it's good and awesome. And you can also say like, that's shit, which that means it's negative. And so my question, and I'm sure there's probably a better example I could use that doesn't involve cursing. So apologies to everybody, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. But like, how can AI possibly determine, and I don't know how many people are using that type of terminology. Maybe this is, that's like some of the data points that like end up being like, less than, 0.01% of the data pool. So like, does it really like fluctuate in terms of sentiment or anything? Like maybe not. I don't know. But I'm sure that there's plenty more examples like this that come up that can in fact impact or change up kind of sentiments or and an analysis of like what you should actually be doing. How can, or are you aware of like, so if you put in with, if AI understands shit as like a bodily function as well as a curse word as well as a word that can be positive or negative, how do you get to like whatever the end result is as to what the meaning of a phrase that utilizes that word means? This is a genuine question because I have absolutely no idea.
Okay, the technical answer, I'm sorry, gonna go there, is that every, let's say, phrase or combination of words that are used to train an AI, or even that the AI produces when it answers a prompt. The way that it works simply is kind of if you have all of the infinite possibilities of words and the combinations, let's say in a 3D Cartesian map. So you have X, Y, and Z. All of these combinations, when they're together, they are in a 3D space.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that are closer to each other are the ones that are more similar to each other. Let's say, for example, you have other and small. So these two different words, they are not the same word, but they're similar.
Yes.
So in these 3D Cartesian space, they would be very close to each other. And let's say you have that's the shit and that's great. Based on the data set that the AI was trained on, it would identify by context that these two phrases are similar. So they would be put together very close as well in that 3D
Mm-hmm.
map. So when a new conversation comes in that a person says that service was the shit, then it will be able to identify and kind of search. Search is not the correct word, but identify that this phrase is close to a positive phrase, and then it would label it as such. That is not to say that the AI will not make mistakes, because it can definitely can, especially when you're talking sarcastically. Like sarcasm is one of the hardest things
Oh, I
that,
didn't think about that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So especially when it's in text, like even ourselves, when we are in a chat conversation, sometimes
Excellent
we
point.
can identify it, and
Yeah, your
sometimes
friend's sarcastic. Like, I don't know. Like, is this a joke or are you serious? Like, what are we talking about? Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. How do we
exactly.
expect a machine
So
to figure it out if you can't figure it out yourself? And that's your friend, or maybe your mom, or your dad, or your sister. Like, it's hard enough as it is.
exactly. So the answer here, the one the business answer I should give is that we're looking at not one single interaction. We're looking at all of them, and there is a very unlikely chance that all of these interactions will be sarcastic interactions. Actually, most likely, like less than 1% will be sarcastic. So, you just have to believe that statistics will be on your side, and, it will actually provide, on average, a very good interpretation of what the sentiment of these interactions are.
Yeah, and to like, I feel like the
But yeah,
expectation is like good enough. It's not perfection yet. Like we're not at that point of the expectation of perfect. Like, I feel we'll get there, and like just like I guess just like a child, or just like you learn, and then you base new information, base whatever information off that like new set, that new foundation. Um, yeah, absolutely.
and also like, oh, sorry, also like, it is not perfect, but it's also not too far from perfect. So it's definitely gonna be around the 90%, um, like it's gonna be 90% right. It's gonna be right most of the time, which is not something that you can say if you have a team of humans doing the same work. Humans will also, make mistakes as well. The question is this AI better than humans doing this type of analysis? So of course that we don't need, we will require some more research on that and whatnot, but the consensus is that yes, for these tasks, in most of the time, the AI will be better than a human. So that in itself is a justification of, this is more than good enough for
Yep.
it.
So let's say we have this data and everything, and maybe if you have some case studies, but I'm kind of curious, what kind of insights can you take and what can you do with it? It's taking it, it's assessing it, and it's like, what are you going to have? Like, hey, here's like a hit list of like 5 things that you need to do to improve your customer experience. Like what's the end, like what's the takeaway there? What are we asking them, or what have you seen?
Perfect. So let me just start by talking about a bit of customer experience. So at its core, customer experience is every interaction that a person has with a brand. So again, buying the product, using the product, talking with an agent, all of it, it's customer experience. And then in companies, you have customer experience teams. Some companies have, a chief customer experience officer. Other companies put it under marketing. Other companies put it under sales, whatever. What these people do in these companies is just try to analyze what customers are saying about your product, about your service, about anything about the company, and just come up with improvement plans. That's the job. That's okay. 10 people said that they would prefer have this button in the right hand side, but 100 said that they would prefer to have it on the left hand side of the screen. So they have to analyze all of this information and make a recommendation based on what customers are saying, and of course based on the goals that the business has, the strategy and whatnot. So what we can expect from this AI is actually being able to have these recommendations and to produce these recommendations and to also produce even the tasks or the actions that need to be taken in order to fulfill them. Let's say we have 10 cases of customers complaining about the agents that gave them service. So this is a restaurant and they're complaining about the staff, about the waiters. So they, reported on social media, they reported on reviews and whatnot. This AI will, take all of these and will opportunity improvement of staff based on X amount of reviews and whatnot. With your context, customers are complaining about rudeness of the staff and whatnot, and we'll tell you, okay, my recommendation is that you should provide training to the staff, and this training should be on quality of service, should be on X, Y, and Z. But then it will also tell you, okay, you should divide these tasks into three. It has to be approved by the finance department, it has to be approved by human resources, and you have to notify all of the staff that will receive the training. So, now you have tasks or tickets based on the recommendation. And then it is on the role of the person to decide whether this is a good recommendation or not, and whether he or she will follow that action plan that was, produced by the AI, or if it needs some tweaks. Actually, no, maybe we will not do a training. Maybe we will just, call them out and inform them of the situation, which is okay. It's also a valid CX tactic and it's more cost effective, or it's less costly at the very least. So I guess, or I believe that what AI can do is just allow CX teams to invest more time in solving problems rather than identifying them. Right now, most of their work is trying to identify what customers are saying, through different channels. We also have to, I'm sorry I'm talking so much, we also have to understand like the nature of organizations. Most companies are not very close knit in terms of departments. Like you have product development on one side, you have marketing on the other side. They of course talk from time to time, but maybe they don't share the data that they collected from one side to another. And then you have to create, as a manager, you have to create this culture in which
Right.
data must be shared, data must be accessible to everyone. But then okay, they have the data, but then no one is able to analyze it because they have all of these work that they have to do as well. So again, that's where the AI comes in. The way that we built it is that every report is sent to all of the head of departments that are relevant to of that report. So if a report touches on product development, then it will send it to the PD team. If it touches on human resources, then it will send it to the HR team and whatnot. Because everyone, I mean, companies have this saying that they are customer focused or that they are customer centric and whatnot. But are you truly customer centric? Do all of your employees or at least all of your managers know what the customers are saying? Do they put the customer first? So these are the questions that, we recognize that they are not always answered positively because there are just so many ways in which it cannot be done with the current tools that they have. So going back to my first point, like what I enjoy most is building tools, that makes people's lives better. I think just having these tools that allow you, to do this for you is just a way to make your life and your company better. Yeah, AI will stop what you want it to stop, but in this case, it is good enough to give you not only the analysis of what happened, but also the analysis of what should happen to remediate the bad things.
So let me ask you this. You only really hear from people, I think, if they really like something or if they really hate something. And at least in terms of considering, like, say, a company's adoption of AI for any sort of customer experience, if you're only hearing from, say, the long tail on either end, and I tend to believe that maybe, like, either good things or bad things are going to be almost over reflected. I guess how do you like not over rotate on complaints or compliments if the core of your business or the core of your customer base may be like you're never going to hear from them until something goes wrong.
So, and this is a question that I have thought since the beginning of I started working on CX. So, what my conclusion is the following: if people are not talking about it, they're satisfied about it. So, let's say you have a product. Let's say it's fun, and people are not talking about the camera at all. That is, in terms of CX, positive because it means that people are satisfied. They have no complaints. And yeah, they're not delighted. Delighted. It's not, the best camera in the world, so people are not talking about it. But for your role as a CX person, you are okay because you can say it's a good thing that they have accepted us as.
Yeah.
Now you also have two other spectrums. You have delight and you have disgust, right? Or displeasement. If you have delight, then it's also a very good thing because it makes you different, right? It is something that you can actually promote even. Let's say in the same sample of the phone that is very fast. And people are verbal about this. The phone is so fast, I enjoy it. The phone is great, it's super, super fast. If CX is done right, it could even inform the marketing department, hey, people are saying this about the product.
Yeah.
You should promote this.
Highlight the
Because
speed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if it's negative, then it's something that you have to pay attention to correct it. And there's also here, of course, aspects in which, like, you have to select and you have to prioritize even the things that you will do. Not only in terms of, resources availability, like, of course, maybe you have 20 things that need to be solved, but you need to prioritize. And this also, something that the AI can do. What I actually want to go to is that at the end of the day, CX is a human practice, or it's human in its core. That means that you could have 100 people being delighted about the speed of the phone, and then you could have one people saying that it is so slow that they will stop using the phone, just because of the nature of how humans are. If it's in a restaurant, you can have 100 people saying that the food is great, and you have one person saying that the food sucks and it's terrible and they will never come back. So I think that's an issue that could be addressed. Like, how do you prioritize? Could be addressed with statistics, with AI, and that's something that we also think about. What if you have one negative comment about the taste of the food, but you have 100 positive comments in the same time period about the taste of the food? Should you actually do something about it? What we do is say, well, actually, we don't know. You should do something about it, but it's very low on your priority list,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have other 10 things that, are much more clear that there is a dissatisfaction about them. So if you want to do something about it, do it when you have solved all of the previous ones. And also, if you solve like the very first one, the top one, you're going to impact the people that, complained and also the people that didn't complain, but that also were affected. So yeah, it's complex because it's human focused. It comes from a human perspective, but it's also very interesting.
At this point in time, like utilize AI as a tool and take the insights, but at the end of the day, I feel like if it were AI only reading, or at least only like listening to like whatever, like the complaints or the compliments, I go back to like, was it that Henry Ford quote? Like, if you ask people what they want a faster horse. And so, like, there's that component where it's like, AI is fantastic and everything gets me to a point, and then from that point, like, no, like, if you're complaining about the horse, like, you don't just want to like breed faster horses and everything. Like, maybe there's an opportunity for a different tool there. And I don't know if we're at that point where AI would be able to suggest like, hey, here's something that you can make that is not a horse. I do want to ask you also about like
Hmm.
just generally like AI and ethics and data and privacy and everything, of which, I mean, I feel like, today we could even ask the same question like without even AI. Are you aware of any, like, how different countries kind of approach or perceive the adoption or implementation of AI in their countries? Because I guess ultimately too, it's like the internet is like has no political borders anyway, but somehow like we do adopt laws for, various different countries that impact technology. So is there anything specifically being discussed around AI and privacy? And I mean, even when it comes to like how to like social, like this listening component, like where are we on that spectrum of like adoption or restriction?
I think this a very important case on why education matters, and what I mean is there has been always this AI, or let's say AI dream or AI project, because even students can do it now, to predict crime. Okay, crime is going to happen in this street, and it's going to be an assault, or it's going to be a robbery, or whatever. And what I mean by education is that, okay, maybe you are a police officer, a police chief in Malaysia, or in Singapore, or in the States, or in Spain, and you want to develop something like this for your jurisdiction. I say that education is important because if that chief knows about how the AI model was produced or how they are produced, he or she would know the difference between choosing an already developed model or building a new one. And in that specific case of doing crime predictions, where you do put into the data, aspects of the person that committed the crime, like their race and where they live and their age, you should always go for a custom model and never for a pre-made one. So if you're in Spain, you should not copy the model that was produced in Atlanta or in New York, because then it will give you biased results.
Okay, and that's
At the end
exactly
of the
where my
day,
head was going. I was wondering, I was like, bias, I don't know, like, can I was going to like bias. I was even going like, can AI be racist? Like I have questions.
the answer is yes. It can be racist, it can be biased, because AI will just amplify human bias because the data that is given to it is data that is about humans, at least in these cases. So it will definitely introduce the biases that are in the data itself. So if you have a jurisdiction in which crimes are committed by a certain population, then when you move that model into another country, which doesn't have necessarily the same population or the same aspects, then of course it will be more racist than effective, because it will be looking into that thing that was trained for in the past.
Yeah.
So there are definitely applications of AI in which you will always need to customize. So I started my AI work doing predictive analysis for diseases, like predicting outbreaks and whatnot. Everywhere we would go, we would of course present and showcase our findings and showcase our projects and showcase, our impact. But when they would ask us, okay, can we have this tomorrow? The answer would be no, because we would need to do a new model. because every location is different. Even if we're talking about the same disease, we would build a new model for that location. Data availability is different, what is recorded is different, but they're just culturally different as well. So yeah, education matters a lot when you're implementing an AI model. There are models, of course, that can be used for anything. For CX, yeah, you can use it very much for the same. You can use the same model pretty much for everything, because the nature of complaints and compliments is pretty much the same worldwide. But for other issues like detecting crime or maybe measuring likelihood of survival of you having certain disease,
Mm-hmm.
those I would do a custom model.
So if AI can learn, if AI can be taught, can we teach it to ignore bias? I mean, you're talking about custom modeling and everything, but like, is there a way to implement, and I don't know how you get to that, but is there a way to kind of make it, what is the opposite of bias? Not biased.
Unbiased.
Unbiased. Like, is there like, how do we get there? Like, if AI is so smart, I mean, and AI isn't very smart, it learns so much. Like, can we get it to a point where it doesn't see bias or checks itself on its own biases?
Okay, so it's really all. I think we should look into maybe what I would do with the results of the AI. Would I always use AI, as a blind tool that will solve everything for me, or will I actually read what it says and evaluate my actions based, on my own experiences and on my own diagnostics of the environment that I'm implementing? To answer your question, yes, there are techniques in which you can, provide more weight to certain variables and try to make them not so important. But what if the variable is important? What if truly there are some aspects of the population that actually are more drivers of certain conditions or for certain
Mm-hmm.
outputs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What if that's truly the case? Then it is biased and it's correct because it happens as such. So that's why when I read about these techniques of producing unbiased models and whatnot, my worry is actually not in the model itself, but in two things. My worry is on the data that was input to the model and what ultimately the model will be used for
Mm-hmm.
and how it will be used. So there are many instances in which you have racist models in terms of crime because there are racist behavior that puts more how do you call these tickets to people of a certain color. The model is not at fault. There were more tickets to people that were, let's say, white or black because the police officers that reported them, which is ultimately where you get the data from,
Right.
were biased
Yep.
and
Yep.
were
Yep.
racist.
Yep.
So again, do we want to, analyze data before we build the model? I think that's a more important question. And second, what would you use with the model output? Like, what would you do with that? Like, what would
Mm.
you use it for?
What a heady
So,
question. Going a little bit of the judicial system, at least with how it's framed up actually here in the United States. Like, I wonder, like, I'm sure somebody's had AI read a bunch of different court cases and everything. And I guess I'd be curious to go look at the data. I realize this has nothing to do with customer experience and everything, but I'm like, this opens up. I feel like I'm going to leave this conversation with more questions than I started, honestly. But like, I got some of them answered, but now I have new ones. So like, more to come. In terms of like, we're at this really interesting, exciting kind of junction point of AI's implementation for customer experience. What do you anticipate? What do you anticipate to see in the future? Let's call it like a year from now, 5 years from now, and even 10 years from now. Technology just by nature goes so fast. What are do you have some predictions on what you anticipate to see coming up?
I think I do have some predictions. I think number one would be hyper-personalization. So just as you have like the Spotify Discover Weekly, but I'm hoping now we'll have new products or new features in our daily apps that will be very personalized to us. Maybe Gmail or Outlook will help us write emails as if we were writing it ourselves, in our own style, you know? Or maybe we will have tools that tell us exactly what we need to tell to our customers in a way that resonates with them based on their historical behavior with our company. Maybe we have another aspect of this is also the advancements in processing. Like this is not AI so much. I mean, there is an AI component in that, but as we have better systems, like faster system, faster chips, we will also be able to have faster recommendations or faster AI. So imagine like we're talking with our customer online, in the phone, sorry, and suddenly we have this AI that tells us exactly who the customer is, their experience with us, and what we should say, like recommendation to close a sale, for example, like live, like talking to the customer. I also believe that we will see a more mature environment, a more mature market. I know there is a lot of work doing to automate like calls, but there's a lot of also people not wanting to have like bots calling them. It doesn't matter if they sound good or not.
It already doesn't work. People get so annoyed.
Yeah. So what if we, change the approach? Maybe we keep humans making the calls, but we empower them with the AI tools. Like, okay, I'm calling you, but now I know that you like this, and that. Maybe I introduce with that, and I close the cell this way. Or maybe I don't call you at all, and I find a way to actually reach you in a way that you like to be reached. Of course, only the market will tell with time, but I think these two things, like hyper-personalization and speed of, recommendations, will be major in the upcoming years.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for that. The hyper personal, because where my head actually goes to this is not even just like, hey, you like a certain thing. My head actually goes to hyper personalization where like you're speaking English but with an accent. Like I think of a lot of my family, let's call it like even a US like utility company, and they need to like provide some information or do like some sort of service thing at your house, that if the AI could actually call you in your native tongue and speak to you, just like just remove some barriers. Or if you end up, if I could see some of my family, like if them calling into like say a call center, if it could help with understanding like say like a thick accent of some sort. I think I didn't even think about where it could go with that, but I'm excited for the possibilities, and that would just makes for a significantly better experience at the end of the day. And I mean, I think we've all gotten frustrated going through like the various different prompts on a phone call, and it's not understanding what you're trying to say. And it's so frustrating that if that could get improved, like I think we'd save a lot of people in terms of like their high blood pressure. It's like let's make that better. Well, Rainier, I would love to encourage people to go follow you. Where can people find you?
Thank you. So you can find me at Rainier at cxnews.com, and you can follow us at cxnews in Instagram and LinkedIn. You can also visit cxnews.com and see what we do in much more detail, and also contact us there.
Yeah, perfect. Any final thoughts or anything? Otherwise, it's been absolutely my pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. I love discussing, not only what AI is and does, but also how it affects customer experience beyond chatbots, because other people think about customer experience and AI as chatbots only.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Join the Idea Citizen LinkedIn group and share this episode with a friend.